Hello, this is Lakshmi Kantiwari. Today I am going to show you how you can work with the Realm database. Realm database is an advanced database based on a C++ architecture, and it's a quite very useful. Nowadays the people have been using my SQLite database with their Android, and now Realm database has came and it's growing very fast. It is available at realm.io, and you can see there it's available for Android, and of course the Realm Objective-C is available and Realm JavaScript available, and it is also available for iOS programmer, and it is also available for Realm Xamarin. Right, so we need to go into the Realm Java. Here we are going to program it. Here we are going to learn programming in Android. So as you can see, the first it comes, you can download it for the Android applications, or you can get a source from from the GitHub. But don't worry, you don't need to go there. So let me first explain it how it works. So as you see, here is a model. So it is defined for a model for a dog, and suppose that you are defining any models, you need to extend that model first into a Realm object, right? And here a person, the model has been extended into the Realm object, right? So then after that you need to create that model. You need to instantiate that models into a dog or the person, something like that. Then you can initialize the Realm objects, and then you can get the default Realm objects. So okay, so I'll be covering all these in this video tutorial. So first of all, that we need to set our this Android. We need to first set our this Android program with the proper setting. So you can do that with the installation, installation steps. So first of all, that you need to get these dependencies. So you can get these dependencies, double click it and copy it. Then we need to come into a Gradle, and first of all that we need to come into a project level of Gradle, right? So here we can put our dependencies, then sync it, right? Apart from that, we need to also add one more file, one more line that would be added into a app level of Gradle, right? So you can add that here, right? Perfect. Now Gradle Gradle is in sync. Let it sync. Okay, so wait for it, and after this I think we are done for everything. Now we do not need anything here. Now we can directly start our programming, right? So for the programming, um, uh, but before that let me show you few more things. So here first of all, let's see initializing Realm, right? So you can initialize realm dot init with the context, okay, and then we can create one more file name as my application. Then we can extend it as an application, and then we can initialize Realm there itself, and that Realm will be available for all the file in that project. And if you create this my application, then you need to add that my application into a manifest, Android manifest file, right? So apart from this, now let's start the programming. Okay, so this wait a minute, it comes error because I had not added this before syncing our Gradle. So let's sync it now. Now the error will be gone, and now I think we can start our programming. I think something is yes, so the bug is here this bug is coming. Okay, I'm this bug comes because of there is a problem in this Realm, so that can be I think we can remove that with a we can add, I think, I'm sure, I mean suppose that if we add here into our app label of Gradle, I think it's fine here. I don't think there is problem anything here. but I think we need to add here something before dependencies. We need to add Android, right? So Android, and then we need to configurations, right? So here configurations dot all, and now we need resolution strategy. Okay, right, so here we need a resolution strategy, right? So dot force, right? So dot force, and then we need to give here the our object name, right? So that can be given as com dot google dot code, right? So dot find bugs, and then its number is JSR 305, right? So JSR 305, and after that 1.3.9, right? Now I think everything is fine. So let's try it again. I think error must will go. Okay, let's see. Perfect. So the Gradle has synced successfully. So let's close this file and close this file. So let's first create our application here, right? So Java, and you can name it as my application, right? So it's my application, it's a .java file, and now we need to extend this my application, and we can of course extend it into, oops, not app complexity, we need to extend it into the application, right? So after this we need to add here override function that can be accessed using control and O, and then you write here on create, right? So on create once come here, and then we need to initialize realm here. Okay, so here realm dot init, and then we need to pass here context, that is this activity of context, and then we can say realm configuration, and then we can say config, right, is equal to new, and then realm configuration dot builder, and then dot build, right? So dot builder, sorry, dot build, oops, dot build, and dot build, right? So why this is angry? Okay, I think we do not need that one, fine. So now rel dot set default configuration, now we need set default configuration, that's the config, right? So let's search this one, set default configuration, copy it, and let's search it here, set default configuration. So here is realm configuration file, right? So you can get here realm configuration file, either you can set it as a default or you can give a name of your realm, right? So when we initialize it as a default, then default.realm file object would be created on your mobile, and the data would be stored into default.realm file. Otherwise, if you want to give the name of the file in which you want to store the data, you can give the name of that file here. That's the myrealm.realm. And if you want to give some encryption key, however by default it takes a key, encryption key, but still if you want to give an encryption key, you can give, and you can define a schema version, and you can define the module, migrations, etc. here, right? That's the process if you want to build it, initialize it manually. And there is another way, you can initialize it as a default. So in a default mode, the default.realm would be created on your mobile application, right? In fact, suppose that if you want to create a multiple object in your mobile application, so that can be done independently. You can initialize realm configuration my config equal to the new realm configurations dot builder, and then you can give a name my realm dot realm version 2, and then other realm dot realm version 5. So it is something like that. If you want to manage a multiple database on your in your single application on your mobile application, right? So if you want to create a default realm, so for the default realm you can do it something like this. It's a very simple, right? So if you initialize something like this, then this this application, this realm default configuration, right? So this default configuration would be available for your whole application, right? And for that you need to add this application into your manifest file, right? So in manifest file you can add that, right? So we need to come here and then we need to write here a name, and that's the my application, right? Perfect. Okay, so apart from that I think we are done with the realm configuration. Now let's create a model. So why do we want a model, right? So let me show you why we want a model. I mean, let me connect my mobile first, then I'll show you why do we need a model. It's very easy to operate with the model in Android application. So suppose that if we open here this application, right? If you see here in the mobile, so I'm gonna create something like this. So there would be a name text, and then there would be a marks text, and then there would be a button, right? So if you type something, I mean you can type of course the name, and then you can type a marks of any student, and then you can save it. So once you save it, right, the data would be stored into a realm object, right? So let's save it. Let's save here my name, that's the Lakshmikant Tiwari, and let's give marks 89, and let's save it. Now the data has been saved, right? Now let's save something here. Let's save now let's cancel it, and let's I mean type the name Sam, and then marks type 90. Now if you see here, the name, a student name Lakshmikant Tiwari, and the marks is 89, right? And similarly if you again press it, right, so the name Sam, marks. If you again press it, marks, right? And if you press it the multiple times, you see here, right? And if you see here, this is a scroll wave. So we are going to do all those things: a text wave, a button, a scroll wave, and inside the scroll wave there would be a text wave, right? Okay, great. So let's let's come with the our application. So now we are done with the Android manifest file, we are done with my application. Now we need to create a model. So let's create a first package here and name it as a model, right? So inside the model I would like to create an application named as a student, right? So this student, first of all that we need to extend it as a realm object, right? Okay, realm object. I'm not sure why this oops, yes, of course I need to extend it. Yes, so we need to extend it in a realm object, and now we need a name of this student, so we can say the private, and then a string, that's the name, and then we want a private, and then int, and it is a age, right? So now let's initialize the constructor. So for that you need to press a command and n, and this is the constructor. So first we need a default constructor, right? And then we need another constructor with all these variables, and then we need a header and getter and setter, right? So now we need getter and setter for both, and after this getter and setter we need two string, right? So here we need a command n and then two string, right? So here we have a student name and age, right? Okay, fine. So I think now we are done with our student file. So let's close it, right? So now let's come back to the main activity. So in main activity, we need to first suppose that if you want to log the data, then you can the initialize here the tag name. So that's the log t. You can type log t and enter, and now this is main activity, but before that I think we need to set our layout. So come to the layout. In a preview you can see here we don't need this, okay, and we don't need this constant layout. We need here relative layout. In fact, we can go with the linear layout also, that's not a problem, but let's go with the relative layout. And for relative layout, as I have already shown you, we need two text view and then one button and then a scroll wave, right? Okay, so first of all that we need here the text view. So that's the edit text, right? So in edit text, let's give its id as a name, and for that but first let's match its width and wrap its content for height, and then we can give a margin from the top. So let's give some margin from top. Let's take it as a 40 sp, and then let's give some id, and id is name, right? And apart from this, I think we do not need anything, right? I think we can give a padding also. No, I think we don't need a padding. We can add here padding, right? So let's give a 40 sp as a padding. 40 sp is too much. 20 sp I think would work, right? So this is for edit name, and sorry, for name. And now we need for wrap content. Now we need for our marks. So now let's give some margin from the top. Let's give a 20 sp margin, and let's give a id is marks, right? And apart from this marks, let's make it below, layout below. Okay, great. So let's put it below a layout of id name. Okay, apart from this, now we need another button, right? So for button, can type a button, and let's match parent. Yeah, that would work, don't worry. And then the wrap content, right? And let's give some name to this text, and let's give save. Okay, and now we need to also give a name to this id. We can give a name, let's say save button, right? And then we can put it below layout of marks, right? So put it below marks, and then I think we can give some margin from the top. Let's give it 20 sp, right? And apart from that, I think we can give some hint also here, right? So hint name, and we can also give hint here, that's marks, right? So now let's take a scroll wave. So we want a scroll wave, and width, let's take a wrap content, and also wrap content, and let's put it below of button, save button. That's of course the save button. And now inside this is scroll wave, let's put a text wave, right? So I think the text wave would be much enough to just display the saved data. And for that text wave, we can say match parent for width, and for height the wrap content, and for id, right? So for id, let's give id to the as a display, right? As a display. And then let's give some margin from the top. I think yes, we can give some margin, yes. So let's give a margin from the top as a 20 sp, right? Now I think everything is fine. Now you need to press the command and the option and then L, and then everything would be automatically set. So the ID would come first, and then after that, you know, the hint would be coming to the last point. Okay, fine. So now I think here everything is fine. Now let's come back to the our main activity, right? So we have done with the activity main. Now comes with the main activity. First of all, that we need to instantiate our we need to create our edit text and text view. So here we have edit text, and for that one we have name, and then we have a marks, right? And then we have our text view, right? And for that text view we have a display, and then we have here button, and that button is of course a save button, right? And apart from that, I think save button, it's a save button, right? And now let's create an object of realm. So you can give just realm object, and now let's come to onCreate method, right? So inside the onCreate method, let's instantiate that edit text name is equal to edit text, and then find v by id, then r dot id dot of course that would be a capital R dot id dot name, right? And then we want marks is equal to, that would be of course the edit text, and then find v by id, then r dot id dot then marks, right? And now we need a button here, so that's the save button, right? So the save button is equal to a button, and then find v by id, and then r dot id dot save button, right? And now we need a display, right? So here we want a display, and for a display that's the text view, and then find v by id and r dot id then dot display, right? Now we are done with the name, marks, display, and the button. Now let's log it. Okay, so the log d on create I mean a weave init. Okay, weave initialization, you can say done, right? So weave initialization has been done here. Now we need to create our we need to get our default realm instance, right? So the realm is equal to realm dot get default instance, and then we want here a realm dot begin transaction, right? And then we want realm dot delete all, and then we want realm dot commit transaction. So let me explain why I am doing this. So for every time once I start my applications, I must create I must clear once I start my application, every time I must clear this field, otherwise you know this would be, there would be a lot of data. Means I don't want to keep this, I'm just showing it for you know the demo purpose. So you can, I mean you can delete this part from your applications if you are working for a development purpose, right? So now let's come to the button. So that's the save button dot set on click listener, and then new, then of course on click listener, then inside the on click, now inside the on click we need to save our data. So let's create another method here, right? So that's the private void and then save data, right? So inside the save data, so here what we want, so let's call that save data, right? And then let's create another method. So that's also the private, and then void and then read data. Once you save data, then let's let's read this data, right? So now let's create this, let's write this save data, right? So save data, so inside the save data what we can do, I mean it's actually a very simple, right? So I can show you, it's a very simple. So for that you need to come here into a write. So let's come into a write. Here is write. So there is multiple options to write data into a Realm database. Either suppose that if you get the email etc, then you can the begin transaction, then you can insert, and then you can finally commit transactions. But if you want to write into the blocks, means the multiple write a single time, then you can do with the transaction blocks, something like this realm.execute transaction. But that's for a synchronous purpose, that's for blocking purpose. I mean this is blocking method. But if you want asynchronous transactions, non-blocking transaction, then you can use something like this, realm.execute transaction async, right? I mean we can copy this part directly. Okay, so let's copy it. Okay, so we can copy it and then we can paste it here directly without any problem. So now we need to do something here. So first of all, that this is a student, right, and this is student, of course, and then this is a student. Okay, so here I have got this variable student, object student. Now we need to set the name of that student, set name, student dot sorry, it's I think a small student, right? Yes, oops, dot set name, right? So set name as a John. Of course I don't want to set a name as a John. I have to read the data from the text field. So that's the name dot get text, then dot to string, and then I can trim it. Suppose that there must not be any white spaces. And similarly here we want a student, then set age. Is it age or marks? Perhaps I think I made it age. Oh my god, I made it age. Sorry for that one. Okay, so let's set it age, right? So I'll change that marks into, let's change that here. That hints marks into age. Okay. Set age. So for set age, similarly, what I want here? Oh, marks dot get text, right? And then I want it to make as into a to string, and then just trim it, right? But this is an integer, so for that we want to parse it into an integer. So that can be done using a integer, and then dot parseInt, right? And then we can put this inside this parseInt, and we can delete this, right? Now we are done with this writing. So on success, so let's log this data. Okay, can say a data written successfully here, right? And then we can also log here, that is the log d on error. I mean what I can error occurred while writing. So we are done with the save data. Now let's add another override function, control and O, and then we need here on destroy, right? So inside a on destroy, of course, so that's fine. And now let's read the data. So for reading data, it's a very simple. So we need to first get a real result, right? So it's a kind of array here, and the data type would be a student type here, and let's make it students is equal to realm dot where I want to look, it's a student dot class, right? And then find all, that's mean go through, you know, the database, a full database, and then I want to display something, right? So set display dot set text. So let's first set a blank text, okay, while I'm loading the data, and then let's take the string dash the data is equal to blank string, right? So I'll show you why I want this blank string. Because of that, I'll be reading this data, right? So data, and then I'll be displaying. So first I'll read first data, and then I'll keep adding, okay, together. So that's why I have created a data here, a string, okay. So I'll show you here why we need this data. Now let's create a for loop, okay. So I have to go through with all available students here. So that's the student, and then I can say here that's the student, and then it would go through all students, okay. And then we need here a try and catch. So that's the try, and then we also need a catch. So inside catch, null pointer can occur, null pointer exception e, and then we can e dot, you know, the print stack. It's very simple, right? So let's come to inside a try. So inside a try, what we can do, we can actually log the data, I mean log d, okay. But and inside that we can log the data, and reading data, and then we can say a data is equal to a data and then plus the string which I am going to read here, right? So that's the student dot to string, right? So the student dot to string, so that is here, right? So it will get this, okay, the name, age, etc., everything, okay, here. So the student dot to string, it will get everything, the name and the age into a data, and then it will add inside that. And for that I have to also add a new line while adding a new data, right? So that's the very simple, you can add it something like this, okay. So the data, new line, and the new data, the data, new line, and then data. So it would be, you know, it would be working something like that. Once you exit with this for loop, then I can set a display dot set text, and then I can pass this data into this text. Now I think I have covered everything. Now let's run it, okay. Let's run it and see what would happen here. Okay, so its Gradle is building. Let's wait for it. The new application will be open with the name as Realm Database YouTube. I think this video has gone, you know, it has took a lot of time, but still it was worth of learning all those things. Otherwise you could have not got everything here. Yeah, perfectly, it's working perfectly. So let's give a name here as Sam, and age of Sam is 32 years, okay, and save it. So I have saved it. So now the data has been saved inside the database, right? So now the data has been saved, okay, but the data was not available for reading it, okay. So the data was not available for reading it, and you can also come into here Android monitor. So the first time it don't read the data, because of that the data was not written onto inside a default.realm object, that means the database, realm database. So but if you press next time, suppose that if you want to store here name as Harry with name year as 12 year, age of that Harry, and then if you see here a student name Sam and age 32 has came here, and if you again press here save it, then Harry again came and another Harry has been stored. If you change here a name as let's say Potter, okay, and let's give it name age as 18 and save it, okay. So here the second time Harry came. Now if I press another, let's say Gil, save it, see here Harry Potter has came. Now there is a problem. If you see here, I mean it's not coming very, I mean it's something, I don't like this, something like this. So what you can do here, you can come into a student, and of course I don't want this one, okay, so leave that, right. So let's return something, the fantastic. So I want a name here, right, so I don't want something like that, name, okay, then I don't want this one, and then of course there would be a name, and then I don't want this, okay, and then I want a age, right, I space, let's give 2-3 more spaces, and then again there is a space, and then after that these things I don't want, okay. So now let's instant run it, and then you can see it here. Let's run it. Perfect. So it has been applied here. Now as you see, it has cleared. Why? Because if you see here, I have already written here this one, delete all. So it will automatically delete everything from the database, okay. This is very critical, always remember this, okay, otherwise by mistake you may delete your database. So let's save the Gil, right, and now let's again save a Harry. See here, name Gil and age 18, right. Let's say the Potter, see here, a name Harry, age is 18. So it's working perfectly, and you can do a lot of things, whatever you want with this Realm database. It's perfectly safe, and it's actually a very fast. I think it's at least a 10 times faster than a native database which is MySQL available on Android application, right. So you can use it, and I think I must stop this video tutorial here. It has been I think more than 50-40 minutes. So I hope you have enjoyed this video tutorial, and subscribe this channel, and if this video helps you, you can like this video, and you can also share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe this channel so that you can get update directly into your inbox when I make a next video. So thanks for watching. Bye bye, have a nice day.